We are joined on this episode by a Los Angeles-based film critic who is currently published on sites including Slash Film, Fangoria, Bloody Disgusting, and many more websites. He's also a member of the Hollywood Critics Association and host of the rad podcast Certified Forgotten. He is Matt Donato. Matt, thanks so much for being on the program here with us, sir.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I don't know if it's a pleasure having Matt on, to be honest, because I talk to him too much. So this is just too much Matt for me. So I'm going to sit out and let you do all of this, Sean.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, Beck gets to deal with me at least, once a week? So this is like twice a week. That's a whole upgrade.
Yeah, full disclosure, Matt is on, we do this weekly Zoom call with all the friends that we don't get to see during quarantine that we would normally be hanging out with at film festivals. So we kind of created this weekly Zoom chat. And so Matt and I see each other quite often. And I probably can guess some of the answers to these questions. But thank you, Matt. I appreciate you joining in all seriousness.
Well, thank you, Becky.
Well, we'll kick it off like we normally do. We always like to start these interviews by asking, where did your love for the horror genre begin? Was it a particular movie or a piece of pop culture or some kind of instance in your life that really gave you the bug?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you the abridged version because I don't want to take up the entire podcast talking about this. I will actually quickly plug Certified Forgotten as well before we get into it, because myself and my co-host Matt Monagle, we actually took one episode each where we didn't talk about any movies, and we talked about in length our horror origins, or as he dubbed it, our horigins. So to get the full story, head over to Certified Forgotten and you can get it there. But the abridged version for all of you Paper Street listeners. I was horrified of everything as a kid. I was full of anxiety. I hated horror movies. I avoided them as much as I could. And I would say I avoided horror in my life until high school. And I had a particular aversion to Chucky. For some reason, everyone has their demon that haunts them. And I had the dumbest, funniest of them all. But I was petrified. Like literally in late middle school, going to sleepovers with friends, and Bride of Chucky would come on the TV, and I couldn't look at the TV, and I would have to make excuses why I'm like veering off to the side or doing something else. So Chucky kind of became my adversary, and the more that I started to discover a love of cinema, it didn't start with horror at all. It started just with realizing that movies are more than entertainment. I went to college at Hofstra University. I roomed with a film major who was going to the film studies program at Hofstra, which is very well known. And I started to love movies more and more, and I started to see them as more than just base value entertainment. I was also a business major, so this was like a big revelation for me that there was more to the world and like more to the creative side of myself. And slowly, I started also to shed my anxiety. I started to really come into my own as a person and become more confident, become all the things that I was avoiding throughout my entire life. And that brought me to the ultimate moment of I had been dabbling in writing for a little bit, and I had an opportunity at We Got This Covered to interview the entire cast of Curse of Chucky. I still had never seen a Child's Play movie to that point. I was finally coming into my own as a movie fan and all these things. So it all came together where I'm like, screw it. I'm going to sit down. I'm binging the entire Child's Play franchise. I'm going to do this, like conquering my fears head on. This is where everything turns around. And Child's Play is now my favorite horror franchise, favorite slasher franchise, whatever you want to call it. I am obsessed with Chucky, and I discovered my love of horror by facing a long-time fear and realizing that the things that we are so afraid of our entire lives are actually probably the things we might enjoy the most, but they're way worse in our heads. So all this time I was building up Chucky. Like we all know Chucky. He makes jokes. Like it's not the most serious of the horror movies. Yet in my head, I had made it so much worse. So yeah, Chucky was my, I guess my upbringing in horror, my real horror pivot point.
You owe everything to Chucky.
I do. Friends till the end, man.
It's funny because Child's Play was a really important part of my, I guess, origin too, because I remember always being really enamored by the VHS covers and always wanting to rent those movies. And my older brother was so terrified of Chucky that he was like, no, and he would start crying and like begging my parents not to let me rent the movies. So I think it's like, as silly as Chucky is, for whatever reason, it really like checks that box of terrifying children, probably because it's like a household toy, an object that's supposed to bring comfort, and it's twisting it, like a clown is supposed to make you laugh, but oftentimes people are terrified by them. I'm assuming Chucky does something similar psychologically with kids.
Yeah, it's the bastardization of innocence. It's that thing that we should be comfortable with and safe with. It's the good guy doll, you know? It's literally called the good guy doll in the sense that you're supposed to sit there and sit with Chucky and he's your friend till the end. And as a child, all the things that we are told, like our comfort zones, our play zones, our fantasies, Child's Play literally tears them all down and says, yeah, you're not safe anywhere because the thing that you might depend on, your best friend till the end, it's going to kill you. It's going to fucking kill you. So it's like, that was, I think Innocence Lost, I guess I would say, is a huge part of those movies. And honestly, I was your brother because I can vividly remember walking through Blockbuster and not going anywhere near the horror section because I remember Chucky's face on the number 2, number 3, those covers, his face takes up the whole VHS front. And I was like, nope, I'm good.
No, I can totally see it in my head. So I guess, going back to, Chucky being kind of your first opportunity to write as a film critic. How did that opportunity come about? Like you kind of mentioned it just presented itself to you. Do you remember how that opportunity came your way?
Yeah. So I had been doing it a little bit up to that point. I think like that Chucky moment was the defining moment where I became full-fledged horror in the sense that I would start covering it more. And I really enjoyed doing those kind of genre-related events and genre-related festivals, things of that nature. So going back on that a little bit to rewind, it oddly enough started with an ex-girlfriend, and I hated writing. I'm just say that out front. I was the kid in every English class in middle school, high school who put off my essays until the last night. I stayed up all night trying to just do the thing I hated the most. I wasn't into creative writing. I wasn't into any of that stuff. So I never thought there could be anything in that process for me outside of school writing. But lo and behold, turns out that when I actually want to write about something I enjoy and am passionate about, it's actually fun. So for so long, I, again, fought something that I didn't think about because I just was like, this is dumb. And I was thinking about it just in a school context. So it was an ex-girlfriend, and she was more literary. She was more into reading and writing and things of that nature, like dabbling with poetry. And she would get these journals, for lack of a better term. And what they were is basically she would get them for books, and every book she would read, it would have a whole page dedicated to like rating it, who's the author, all these details about it, like what's the genre, characters, and then it like on the back side, it's like write your review about it. So it was a diary that she would keep for all her books, and it would, basically she was being like an intro literary critic, and she accidentally got one for film. She thought she was getting another literary one for books, and she got a film one, and happened to coincide with when I started just dabbling on a blog because I was watching all these movies, and I'm kind of like, you know what? I see some of my friends I'm starting to read at the time. Ain't It Cool? Don't read that anymore. But Slash Film, Bloody Disgusting, those early days where they were taking over the internet and film culture and that nature. So yeah, I'm like, maybe I can do something like this someday. I didn't think I could do it anytime soon because my skills as a writer were very base at that time. But, she came to me and she's like, I've got this film one I got accidentally. I'm not going to use it, but I see you're kind of like getting a little interested. Would you want to take it and just play around with it? So I'm like, yeah, screw it. I'll do that. It's a way to test my skills. And I started writing and I filled up 2 complete ones. I started just writing all I could on my blog just to practice. And I actually went to go mine the internet for a image to use on my blog. And I stumbled upon, I don't have the fondest feelings for this site anymore, but I have to acknowledge that this is where I started, and I stumbled upon We Got This Covered, and they at the time were very small and they did not get to their clickbaity ways until long after I started there. But I saw a little section on the website that says, would you want to write for us? At the time, I was reading some of the content. It was good. I liked the writers on the site, and I was like, yeah, like I want to start here. I want to see if let's see what happens. So I just applied, and a week, 2 weeks later, I got an email back from the editor-in-chief like, yeah, I like your content. It's good samples. Do you want to start writing for us? And that was how I got into the industry. And everything worked kind of perfectly. And I hope that doesn't sound like privilege at all. Like I'm just saying that on the out front, everything worked perfectly in the trajectory of my life and getting into We Got This Covered at the right time, where I got into the site and there were maybe like 125 hits a month, I think. And over the first year of me writing there, I think they ballooned to like 5 million per month. Like we were part of this crazy upswing. And this is also as I'm graduating college. And this is also as I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And as we got this coverage kept getting bigger, we got on Rotten Tomatoes. We started getting invited to press days. They needed a New York City contact. And at the time I lived in New Jersey, and I had the opportunity at that time where I also had a decent job in the city where I said, all right, well, what if I moved to New York City and just start being your New York guy? And honestly, like that was how I got to everything at that point. Once I moved to the city, it cost a shit ton. I did not live very well. I'm not going to say that I didn't make sacrifices. I paid everything myself. I did everything myself, and I worked my ass off, but you got to put the work in. And when I got to New York City, it was just, you start networking, you start going to all these events, you start going to all these screenings, and all of a sudden I'm starting to make a name for myself. So, I mean, that's how it happened. You know, I'm not going to say that I coasted into it because I worked my butt off to get in here. But yeah, it was a lot of really weird coincidences and a lot of just, some of it was just being right place.
Right. It's never just luck or just timing or just hard work. It's usually some combo thereof, and the hard work always has to be part of that factor, of course. But not to derail from where we're going, but you said it was getting just minimal hits, like then it blew up. Was there a certain scoop or a spoiler that site dropped that really put it into the stratosphere? Or was it just a gradual thing in the wake of like Ain't It Cool and other sites kind of going on a downward spiral that one rose up?
Yeah, so like I said, I think we were about 100. Let's say it's 100,000 to 200,000 range per month. And all of a sudden we shifted our focus. We started working a lot with, at that time we were kind of doing news and reviews and things of that nature. And all of a sudden we made a push for, do you know what ZergNet is?
I know the name, but I don't know what it is.
Okay, so like ZergNet is the platform, I guess I would call it, aggregator maybe. It's an aggregator for features, I would say. So when you look on the right side of some websites and you see like articles from the web, and you know what? A lot of them are kind of shitty clickbait things a lot of time, but they like lists and they like see these 15 crazy transformations that actors made for movies. And we just started pounding out lists like that. ZergNet liked us a lot. And all of a sudden we just started going from like, let's say 100,000, 200,000 per month total to one article getting like 1 million hits in a month because it just performed like crazy on ZergNet. And that helped us just blow up. It, like, honest to God, it helped us blow up to the point where, I don't love to say it, but people still hit me up for We Got This Covered things because I haven't written there in a while because, again, the reputation now is not what I want to be associated with. But people still hit me up because they got the hits. They got everything they need. So we're all of a sudden getting invited to events. We're getting invited to do these video interviews, crap like that. Yeah, it was wild. It was a huge buildup. But yeah, God bless the people that built that site. And, I wish I could be there in other circumstances still, but we all have to do what we know is right and what is right for us at times. And, sometimes you just got to acknowledge the fact that you wouldn't be where you are without the start you got. But also, it's time to move on sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And the power of the listicle lives on. So when did writing transition for you from being something that you were doing more casually to something that you saw as an actual profession, right? When you're like, wait, I could maybe eventually make a living doing this, or like this is something that I consider part of my career and not just something I'm doing on the side. Was it, kind of when you made the decision to move to New York?
Yeah, I think that was a big one because I was early 20s, maybe early to mid 20s, I'll say. And I didn't love just being a business guy because, again, my background, my college career was business management. So I got my business management degree because my parents wanted me to have a safe degree that got me jobs places. And I got a job right out of college. I started ascending in my corporate world as well. And it wasn't fulfilling. And that's very easy for me to say. Like, I'm very grateful because, as it turns out, having that job has helped me open so many doors for my professional career because I'm able to provide for myself. I'm able to sustain myself with a salary and benefits, but ultimately it's a day job. It's not something I love. And as you said, the passion for me is my writing. The passion for me is taking my vacation days to go on film festivals, not real vacations and things like that nature. So for me, it was definitely moving to New York. And I mean, 100% especially moving to LA about a year and not last August, but the August before that. And that commitment was, LA was basically my last push to say, all right, I've ground out New York. I've been doing what I wanted to do for a while. I've been successful here, but I think I'd be better in the LA market. I think I'd be better in LA, even closer. And Yeah, so basically dropped everything at almost 30 and said, screw it, we're moving across the country. So I'm going to say that New York was definitely the pivot point. I put all in there because I just need that other side of my life. And I've been doing it for almost a decade now, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm not going to stop doing it. But I think it's also interesting, too, because, you mentioned, when did you think that's what you wanted to do for the rest of your life and, make it your profession? And I don't know if I ever see this becoming my full profession, just in straight honesty, because I'm lucky. And again, I'm saying that out loud. I'm totally acknowledging where I am in my life. And I'm lucky that I have a corporate gig that is a lot safer than what I see in our industry on the side of journalism and things of that nature. So at one point, I absolutely had every intention of becoming a staff writer somewhere, and my dream was quitting my day job and just writing full time. I think that dream has kind of shifted a little bit because of what I've seen in our industry, and it's an industry that you can love tremendously, and it will never love you back. And I kind of came to terms with that. So I think for me right now, I'm pretty happy just being as prolific as I am, with the fact that I'm still running a day job where I'm equally successful.
Yep. And you're talking to filmmakers with day jobs. So
exactly.
Same, yeah.
Exactly.
Get it.
So you mentioned, between listicles and just general journalism, you've also moved that into film criticism, and just you're known as a film critic to some people as well. Was it an early, film review that really moved you toward that direction? Or was there like a film review that maybe got you noticed or that started to pivot you toward being a critic? And again, as we mentioned, you're a member of the Hollywood Critics Association.
Yeah, totally. I would say that it wasn't a single review. I think I just enjoy the process of criticism more than I do listicles and all those things. The listicles for me were the work that I would do to justify getting to review all the movies that I did. It was always funny, like my editors at one point were just kind of like, where do you find all these horror movies? Because what I would do is I would play ball as much as they needed. I would give them all the mainstream reviews they wanted. They could have everything in listicle format here. Here's 10 horror movies that are coming out this month. Here you go. Here's your top 10. That's fine. I'm also going to review all these things that I find pleasure in, all the indie horror films, because no one else is covering them. And I love the art of digging into a movie, finding its meaning, and finding a way to conversationally but also intelligently put forward a review that will always tell someone, whether it's negative or positive, if they will like the movie or not. Like when I write a negative review too, my entire intention is to still find the audience who will like this movie. So like the way I view criticism, I think is a little, I'm not going to say different, but I think my approach is a marriage between the highbrow, and I'm not going to call it lowbrow, but casual, where I want it to be accessible to everyone, but I still want to drop knowledge in there that might pique audiences to kind of think a little more about movies. And I think I have a unique voice. And I think that's the biggest thing, where you're asking like a specific review. I think it's more the fact that I've had friends say this too, so I'm not just saying this myself. I'm actually repeating like what people have said to me, that when they read one of my reviews, they read it in my voice. They know exactly who's written it. It's something that you're not going to find anywhere else. So when I started hearing that feedback, that was really what I liked. And then building off the horror love there, I love dedicating myself to horror because I don't think it gets covered the way that a lot of people should. And I think that when you're reading one of my reviews of a horror film, it's not of the same mindset, I would say, of other critics. So I almost feel like duty bound, if that makes sense.
No, I get you. And I think it's something that's kind of been lost in recent years, if not decades, in film criticism. And there's various reasons we could go down rabbit holes to blame on that. But yeah, some of the best critics before early on would not address, Lord of the Rings the same way they'd address an Adam Sandler comedy. Like there are certain audiences and certain expectations. And I think, yeah, not just giving your own take on it, but possibly what you think the filmmaker was going for and what you think the audience was, or the expectation of what kind of audience they would have is, like, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it is a lost art. So it's good to see that you're still kind of addressing it in a way that's not just, unique to you, but like also knowing who you're writing it for.
Yeah. And I think it's just a little bit of there are so many different critics, and I think that there are so many valid voices and so many ways to approach criticism that every approach is just as valid. And I think I want to kind of hammer that home, where some people can be turned off by certain critics because they go more into the historical and more into the film history side of things, versus other critics who kind of just take pot shots the whole time. You're reading it and it just looks like an assassination piece. And I'm trying to provide a voice that is easily accessible and that still is going to stir some kind of intrigue in readers. So like, Yeah, that's kind of what keeps me going, I would say. It's just I'm trying to do something that isn't being fully done elsewhere. I'm not saying that I'm the only one doing what I'm doing by any means. There are so many talented critics, but I don't know. I just kind of feel I got a mission and I'm kind of like pushing on it.
You said there's not necessarily one that garnered you the most attention or anything, but do you happen to have one that you might be the most proud of, or just like a one that you think stands out as like a pretty good review, whether you got positive or negative feedback from it necessarily, but just one that kind of sticks in your mind as like you gave yourself a pat on the back for?
Yeah, I want to say it was recently with La Llorona, not The Curse of La Llorona, the Wannaverse movie, the Guatemalan possible Oscar nominee, La Llorona. And I'm going to say that it stuck out in my mind because I'd always envisioned myself as a certain kind of writer. And I use words like accessible, not to downplay myself. Just that's kind of the way I would write. I want to reach the widest audience possible. I don't want to shut anyone out. But I read back my La Llorona review and, it was just like an edit pass, but I'm going over it. And that was a moment for me where I was like, I got so much better as a writer and I didn't even realize it. I didn't take a breath over the last like 8 years or however long to really address how far I've come as a writer. So, I mean, this is a movie that came out months ago. It's recent basically, but it just goes to show how for so long I can be caught up in what I'm doing and just like pushing forward. And then I finally had a moment after years where I read something back and I was like, I'm proud of this. So I think that's why La Llorona sticks out in my mind, because I read something where I finally reached a point in my writing where I stopped beating the shit out of myself 24/7, for lack of a better phrase. And I actually read something back and it was, it just made me even go like, I got better. Holy crap.
Yeah. I sometimes I get that moment with my own writing, where like I put it down for a little bit. You probably don't have the opportunity to do this as much since like film criticism is often much more time sensitive. But, you write something, you put it down, then you come back to it later and you're like, oh, I wrote that? I don't even remember. I must have been in some sort of strange fugue state when I wrote that. But that sounds pretty great.
Yeah, like you black out and the words just appear.
Yeah. Writing's that easy, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Don't even think about it.
So do you have a specific moment? Maybe, we talked about the La Llorona review, but is there a moment where you felt like a lot of your hard work really paid off, or, some moment where you're like, wow, this journalism thing really is pretty rewarding?
Yes, I have a few that I won't like belabor, but there are a few moments that stand out throughout all this. And one of them is I will say that I write so I can go to festivals. I will admit that 100%. I think if I've learned anything in the pandemic, it's that writing throughout the year, it's great. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I cover it. That's fine. But man, do I miss festivals. Man, do I miss just the community of being able to like see all y'all, as we just talked about Fantastic Fest. And that's my love here. That's really what I'm doing this for, is so I can be part of something bigger and go to these festivals and just hang out with everyone that rules. So for me, it was basically my like third Fantastic Fest, and I'd gotten like the Fantastic Fest jitters, I guess I would say. It was only like my fourth or fifth festival at the time. And I finally started having friends. It wasn't just me going and watching movies. I had people that I could go hang out with. I had Bradley, other people like that I've now become great friends with because of Fantastic Fest. And so that was a big feel good moment for me, because not only was I being taken seriously in the industry, not only was I becoming more noticed, I didn't give a shit if filmmakers noticed me. I cared more about my peers and how I reflected there and building those friendships. So that was a big moment for me. Just the acknowledgement and having that kind of lasting friendships. And then I would say I got invited to the reason I got invited, and I know this and I'll say this up front, is because whatever studio was repping Baywatch thought that my shitty sense of comedy would permit a positive review out of the premiere. But in any case, I got flown to Miami and I got to interview The Rock, and I got to hang out on a beach for a weekend for a press event. And I was like, all right, this isn't the worst, like the fact that I'm able to be on this level. And again, it's why I say like, I said what I said about We Got This Covered, but I also respect the fact that all these opportunities came from being there. And again, we all came from somewhere. So my journey was weird with We Got This Covered, but I don't regret any of it, because it gave me a lot of opportunities. And that was a huge standout opportunity where, again, I got flown to Miami to interview The Rock and watch a movie. It was like a mind blowing probably never going to happen again, but still, that was a big old moment. And then the last one was, I guess I wrote a piece about my grandmother's death and tied it into the farewell. So that was a big like emotional weight on me, and just kind of putting something that personal out into the public. And then the film's director, Lulu Wang, read it, retweeted it, and just was so nice about how she retweeted it and what she said, and like showed that she actually read it. So it was nice validation, because I kind of wrote that piece. Now, you write it for the filmmaker at that point, but you just want to thank them for what they put to screen. And yeah, that was a big one.
Those are awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I did cry reading your piece on the farewell, and that film similarly moved me. So, I was hoping you would mention that review with this question. But, in all seriousness, a really important question, though. Did you get baby oil on your hands when you shook The Rock's hand during the interview, or?
Yo, he was slick. All I'm going to say. And I will say slick in touch, and also that dude is just a marketing machine. Everything that came out of his mouth, every smile was, I'm not going to say manufactured, but he knew what the hell to do.
Yeah, there's a reason he's so successful. Going back to, mentioning festivals, I totally hear you. It's so hard not to be traveling, seeing people, and just kind of engaging directly with the community that we really love. And it just doesn't feel the same to celebrate movies without festivals, without the ability to, go grab beers after watching a movie and talk about it. So totally understand where you're coming from there. Have you found some other ways to sort of maintain that connection with people, during the hellscape of 2020 when we can't travel?
Yeah, I mean, to bring up what we talked a little bit about before, I mean, our Zoom call on Saturdays is such a cool thing, because I don't mean this in a negative way to people that I know, obviously, but like my core friend group kind of shifted because of the pandemic, and it's just really interesting to see who I'm talking to every week now versus the people who you only saw at festivals. So I think that's been a really cool thing, that we've stayed in contact and we've been able to replicate a little bit of the lost community. And I say lost community, not as like it's gone forever, but we've lost it a little bit for now. So that has definitely kept me going. And just little things like, listen, a virtual festival is never going to be as good as an in-life festival. That's just how things are. I give all the respect to the festivals that are going virtual and are doing what they have to, because some of them, they've all made it work to some degree, some better than others. And I really want to shout out Nightstream, because I covered Chattanooga, I covered Fantasia, I covered Fantastic, and they all had differing degrees of how they interpreted the social environment, where Chattanooga, people were just live tweeting. I didn't really do any of that. Fantasia tried a Discord server. Okay, you're in a chat room. Cool. Fantastic upgrades to that lobby system, basically, where you got Luke Mullen talking on the screen and you can also talk in the chat group. It's getting better and better. Then it got to Nightstream, and they used this app called Gather. And did either of you check out Gather since then?
Oh, I did over Brad's shoulder, but I was too scared to do it myself because I'm such an introvert, and it's terrifying.
I totally get that. And it seems terrifying, but as someone who thrives on those situations and has been missing that social aspect, I really do want to shout out Nightstream, because using that app Gather, which is basically like a Pokemon Game Boy game, but also meets Zoom. And that sounds like the weirdest thing to describe, but I finally had found that replication of social awareness in a way that you have a little avatar and you got your little video chat on top, and you just walk in and out of conversations. Like there's a radius bubble that you can enter. It was all so interesting, and I really had a blast at that festival. So that was a surprise, because I was getting very sour on virtual festivals because they just seemed like work again. I wasn't with my friends. We couldn't bang out a review and then go drink or do whatever we did. I was in my apartment just watching screeners again, and it all feels repetitive. So I really, really appreciate that Nightstream found a way to make me feel like I was at the after bar again. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I love the whole 8-bit video game aesthetic that they went for. It was super cool, and I was watching Brad explore it, and I loved how you could go find secret rooms and things like that. It seemed like it was really entertaining people and getting them to bond over a mutual shared experience, which is a really hard thing to do virtually. But they found a way. So I thought it was pretty great, even if I didn't partake as much as I probably should have. Yeah, in addition to the virtual festivals, you've been coming up with some other clever ways to engage with the filmmaking community. one of the really fun things that you've been doing is Mary Hour. Could you talk a little bit about what you're doing there with Perry Nemiroff?
Totally. We decided that, so when I moved out to LA, I will say that I knew that I was going to start doing video stuff with Perry, and she's still at Collider, but Collider had a studio in Burbank where they would do Movie Talk and they would do Witching Hour and all these other shows. So there was already the plan in place that when I got out here, one of the things I was coming out here to do was video, and I started doing that with her. And, she was having me on her show, Movie Talks, where she was producing at the time. Unfortunately, it's no longer around. But the Witching Hour 2, her podcast with Haley Fouch. So I would go in there, we would get to do video content. It was a lot of fun. And then Collider made some changes and we weren't doing as much video anymore that we thought we would. So the pandemic has provided a unique opportunity where I'm a little extroverted. I like going out on my weekends. I like seeing people in person, but I haven't been able to do that for the last 8 months, and a lot of us haven't. So I decided, hey, Perry, you have your YouTube channel that you use actively. Do you just want to start like a Friday night live stream where we'll give people chats for an hour? We'll talk about all the new movie news that we can cram in, and then we just kind of play beer pong with people. And it was the marriage of both of our mindsets of, let's be serious. Let's have real debates. Let's have real conversations about industry topics, and, let's be informative, but also let's drink and have fun and be ourselves. And having that ability has been so clutch on Fridays because not much to look forward to these days. Hopefully soon we will have plans to look forward to and going out again, but I still don't think it'll be anytime soon. So this has been, we've had a lot of fun just rambling through topics, having our drinks, interacting with our audience that luckily keeps building somehow. I don't know why people keep tuning in, but as long as they keep tuning in, we'll do it. And then, we play some beer pong. We just chat with guests. We had Benson and Moorhead on once. We're just trying to have fun with it. We're trying to bring people in and relax. And I think we've accomplished that over the last, it's bonkers to say this, but I just looked at the playlist of Mary Hour shows that I have, and we're at 32. And it is insane to think that we've done 32 straight weeks. And we were just kind of like, yeah, we'll see how far this goes. We might only need to do like 20 weeks of this. And now we're like, oh, we're going to have like a lot of episodes.
Yeah, which is a good and bad thing, I guess, in the context of the reason why this is happening. But, maybe there's something to all this, right? With, there's a lot of ways for us to connect that we haven't really been participating in. And I think that's the silver lining of COVID, is that it's taught us a lot of new ways to connect with each other and forge new friendship groups, as you talked about. So I don't know, maybe Mary Hour is just a thing that goes on beyond 2020 because it's fun. So who knows? One thing's for sure, though, is that you keep really busy. In addition to, what you talked about with Mary Hour and all your writing, you also co-host a podcast called Certified Forgotten, where you highlight, and you talked about this at the start of the show, but, just to give people a quick highlight of what it's about, is you focus on films with 5 reviews or less on Rotten Tomatoes. So what made you and your co-host Matthew Monagold decide to focus on these forgotten films?
We created the podcast because we're both horror fans, and so we're trying to keep it horror specific too. So the idea is basically, we were talking at South by Southwest, I think, the last live to South by Southwest that we could be at, and we're just talking about how we started and what we're doing, and we realized that we had gone to the same tiny New York City Horror Film Festival like a few years back. And we just got to talking about the movies that would play these small indie festivals. And like, we had a blast with them. You're with a crowd, you're with the right people, and you're watching indie movies that are slaying it on the screen, but then they never really get the distribution that, I think they deserve in some cases. So that was just like planting the seed. And then probably a few months later, we're talking more and more, and we're just like lamenting the fact. I think it was literally one of the movies that played New York City Horror Film Festival in like 2013, like finally got quote unquote discovered, and people were like, oh man, this movie's really good. So we're kind of just going, yeah, we knew about this a long time ago. I wish there was a resource that could pull up all these movies that are neglected by Rotten Tomatoes, a website that is used so largely and has become like an arbiter for what people actually watch now, because if it doesn't have a tomato meter score, why watch it? Like, obviously, if it's not good enough for critics, it's not good enough for us. But there's a lot of things that go into that in the horror genre, whether you want to talk about in the early 2000s and honestly until like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, just the gigantic lack of horror representation in critics, or the critics who were there and just hated horror. So no matter what they saw, it was going to have a negative rating. We had enough of that. We kind of were just like, you know what? What if we did this crazy ass concept of a podcast that let guests come to us with their favorite films of this nature? Like you said, 5 reviews or less on Rotten Tomatoes. There's no reason for some of these movies to be quote unquote forgotten and lost because of distribution or because the critics that were there just hate horror and ignored them. Like, it's so unfair. Some of these movies that we've been watching, between like Burning Bright, and like Burning Bright is literally this amazing movie about a tiger stuck in a house, and it's a Lionsgate film. Like, it's not even something that was like no budget, no nothing, just slid under the radar. Like, this is a Lionsgate release. And again, tiger in a house, hurricane outside. It did everything that Crawl did, just in a different setting. And honestly, probably just as good as Crawl, but Crawl got the mainstream release and Burning Bright got shafted. And that sucks. Like, it sucks that we talk about one and don't talk about the other. So that is where our podcast came from. We don't view it as just a straightforward review podcast where we bring a guest on and we review a movie. We are more into the fact of talking about, number one, the guest comes on. We kind of do what you're doing right now. We do an interview with them. We want to know where their horror origin started. We want to know what they got interested in. And then we jump into the film, and we're talking about the film in a sense of, why did this get left behind? Why did this get forgotten? Why didn't anyone talk about this? And there's such crazy stories behind some of these films about why they just never see the light of day that they deserve. And we're just trying to build a database for the people that, you know, if we're entertaining enough, and I think we are, and we're smart enough, and I think we are, and, you know, I'm going to bring up Brad McHargue again, getting him on to talk about The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Lee. It's this like eye-opening moment where you're showing someone a movie, and that's me and Monagle, that we've never seen. It's fucking amazing. It's got 1 review on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, none of it adds up. So it just makes for some really interesting and honestly provocative conversations that we've been love and have.
Well, besides the couple you mentioned between the guests and your own research, what are some beyond Burning Bright and Brad's pick that you would easily say, like, this is worth seeking out?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, the ones that end up sticking, because a few of them are Shudder releases, which is very surprising to me, that came out of Shudder originals and still didn't get picked up by critics. It's odd. So one of those is Party Hard Die Young, which is it's the closest I've gotten to an 80s slasher, but still fitted to modern times. So you get these crazy, wild European teens on a even wilder post-graduation party, and they are just there to get drunk and fornicate, and it's everything that we know in slashers, but it redefines it for the modern era, and it kind of strips away the sleaze and it gives it new meaning. So I dig Party Hard Die Young. That's on Shudder. Another one I'm going to call out, Kaylin Corrigan brought Rattle the Cage, and it's an interesting one to call out because it played Fantastic Fest. But as a lot of the films we end up covering do, it played one of like the 11:30 a.m. slots, and it only did it twice. So no one ended up going because we're all hungover and we're all not in the mood to watch a movie with subtitles. But it blew me away in the sense that it's just about a few characters in a prison, and they're isolated, and basically someone breaks into the prison, and he's not there to get anyone out. He's there to torture people, and he's there to play with his food, let's say. So I really enjoy Rattle the Cage a lot. That one was on Netflix. I think it's still there. And the last one I'm going to pull out, oh man, there's so many here that I want to get into, but I'm going to say that we don't always stick to or you know what? Screw it now. I'm going to go early 2000s. I take it back. Tyler McIntyre's Patchwork. And you know Tyler McIntyre's name probably from Tragedy Girls, but the movie he did before that was Patchwork. And basic premise is a Frankenstein story meets Reanimator, updated, and 3 women are abducted and patched together into the same Frankenwoman monster. And what you get is these 3 brains now working one unified body and trying to figure out how they got there. And it's a lot of fun.
I want to watch all these movies. And one of the things, reoccurring bits on this show that we do is a slasher deep cut, which I pick. And it feels like Party Hard Die Young kind of fits that bill of an underwatched slasher movie that people may not have seen. And I also want to note that I love that you found a way to say that the movie was sleeveless, Matt.
Oh, I said it removes the sleaze. Sorry. There is sleevelessness in
Oh, I know. I'm just giving you shit because you really like tank tops.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, I live in LA now. I got to assimilate with the people. This is what we do.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. But no, those are awesome recommendations. So thank you.
So across all of your horror ventures, one of the things you seem to be well known for is your undying love and 'tis the season for holiday-themed horror genre fare. So we first want to ask before we get into that, why is it that you love this festive subgenre so much?
I would go as far to say that I look forward to Christmas horror more than I do October Halloween horror, which might be sacrilegious, but I'm going to go ahead and say that. And it is for the exact reason that ties back to Chucky and Child's Play. And I think it's that innocence destroyed, I'll say, because Christmas is cheerful and joyful and everything that we know about Santa. But these filmmakers find a way to make it so dark, so relentless, and in a lot of cases have a ton of fun with it. Like, two off the top of my head of just bizarre examples that take the Child's Play format is Jack Frost and the Ginger Dead Man. In one, you have a serial killer who gets basically melted into snow by a genetic formula, and he comes back as a snowman and starts killing people, including Shannon Elizabeth, who dies a hilarious death in the shower as he reappears in the water. But the Ginger Dead Man is voiced by Gary Busey as a killer cookie. And I think it's a Charles Band production, and it's everything that you imagine. It's just Gary Busey and this dumb little gingerbread cookie puppet running around with a knife, yelling these insane one-liners about dough and rising and all of these things. And it's just so bonkers the way that they're able to take Christmas, and I think better than any other holiday, just turn it into something absurd. And I'm a B-movie guy. I should get that out of the way right now. I am a B-movie guy, 100%, giving the comedy over everything. And there are so many great examples of that in Christmas horror.
Oh, yeah. And Ginger Dead Man has some of the best subtitles, right, for the movies. I love the second one. It's Passion of the Crust.
Yep.
I mean, give me the puns. Give me all the puns.
The third one's like a disco one. I forget what it is, but it's a Saturday Night Cleaver.
Yep, that's it.
Those are terrible. Don't get me wrong. And Ginger Dead Man is also not great, but the sequels are unwatchable and don't have Gary Busey.
Yeah, I feel like I like the idea of Ginger Dead Man more than I like the actual movies, but that's something else. So what is if you were to, this is going to be hard, but what is your all-time favorite Christmas horror film if you were to gun to your head?
I mean, you're making me choose between two, because as much as I can recommend the most offbeat and crazy, I have so many recommendations. I'm looking at my Letterboxd list and I'm at 132 Christmas horror movies. Most of them are unwatchable. The Christmas horror subgenre is filled with terrible, terrible movies. There are 7 Krampus movies in addition to Krampus that you don't want to watch. But gun to head, you're making me choose between Gremlins and Black Christmas. And every time, because I am who I am, I got to go with my dude Giz. I got to go with Gremlins.
Yeah,
That's
you can't
fair.
go wrong with either of those.
It's totally fair. Okay, so what are some of the films that are on your go-to rotation when you want to get into the holiday spirit? Or does it change every year because there's a bunch of new shitty Christmas horror films that came out that year?
Can I take that to mean give us some under-the-radar Christmas horror recommendations?
Oh, I think I have that as a separate question.
Ooh, okay. All right. So if I'm getting in the holiday spirit, I can do this then. If we're getting in the holiday spirit, I'm probably sticking with Gremlins as my day of watch. Don't get me wrong. That's my Christmas day watch. But Anna and the Apocalypse, that's become one of my rotating December favorites of I have to watch it at least once. A Christmas horror zombie musical. Everything that I want in my horror. I'm also, oddly enough, I'm a horror musical guy. You throw a little bit of the razzle dazzle in there and I am entertained. But yeah, so Anna and the Apocalypse is always in there. I always watch Jason Eisner's short film Treevenge. It's just such an easy watch, and it's so ludicrous. It's just about evergreens fighting back and turning the scenario of going to cut down a Christmas tree with your family, and you have all the smiling families, but now they're like kind of portrayed as psychopaths. And as they're cutting down the trees, you can hear the trees screaming in pain. It's something. It's so good. But so that's always going to be there. And getting away from the horror, I'm an Elf guy. I'm just going to say that out loud. I'm going to watch my Elf.
I feel like that is probably one of the most common answers to, like, if you ask just anybody off the street, they're going to say it's Elf as their go-to Christmas movie.
I didn't say I wasn't basic.
I drink the pumpkin spice lattes and make pumpkin pies during Halloween. So if I can have that and be, basic bitch all the way, everybody can do it around the Christmas time.
And sorry, I should say Nightmare Before Christmas. It's there too. And I can't get away from that.
Yep. A lot of people use that as their transitional movie, right? From Halloween to Christmas.
Yeah. So you're allowed to, or whatever people say.
Whatever. You're allowed to do whatever the hell you want.
Right. And in honor of the podcast and to Becky's follow-up on your Under the Radar picks, what is a more obscure holiday horror gem, or if you have them, that you think more people definitely should see?
Do I have them? I've got them in spades.
He's got a letterbox list full of
130 something.
I'm like, what? Yeah, 132. Which ones do I want to recommend here? I'll give you this. I'm going to give you three. Just make it easy. I'm going to say Deadly Games, also possibly called Dial Code Santa Claus, also possibly called 301. I think it's 3015 Code Pierre Noel. In any case, it is a movie from 1989 about. Definitely late 80s, early 90s, and it never got released in the States until about a year or two ago when Vinegar Syndrome picked it up. And the best way to put it is it's Home Alone meets Rambo meets Die Hard with a psycho Santa. I don't know how else to say it, but a small child that lives in a gigantic mansion who is home alone except for his grandfather. The psycho Santa shows up. And he thinks he's playing hide and seek with the kid. And maybe he's not all there, which is, it's not the easiest character to portray. But in the same respect, the movie is just having fun and it doesn't really do anything in a, let's just say in a bad way. It's all done as tastefully as possible. And the kid's journey as this little miniature Rambo who is obsessed with toys, and his mother showers him in all these toys. He even has a gigantic room dedicated to all the toys he owns and a giant like fighter jet that he sleeps in. It's bonkers crazy. In any case, this kid goes through the ringer. Like, he is seen on his rooftop cowering on like a spire in like a castle. Like, if he slips, he's dead. Or he just gets beat the crap by Santa. Also, he has a dog. That poor dog. Their connection is so sweet. It's just a really, really fun Christmas, almost horror. I'm going to say it's not full horror, but it's got the action elements, so it's genre for sure. So Deadly Games is one to look out for there. Also, I'm going to go with a movie called Dead End, and it stars Lin Shaye and Ray Wise, and it's got two other actor and actress playing their children. Simple concept. They're all driving to grandma's house, and all of a sudden the road doesn't end, and all of a sudden they start passing the same things, and they find themselves on a time loop. There's only one other car that passes them. Every time that car passes, one of their party dies. I don't really want to say anything else because it's just super effective in the way that it plays with the dysfunctional family trope of dad doesn't want to go see grandma. Mom's just putting on the smiley face because it's the holidays. The kids, like the son just keeps trying to like sneak off and masturbate. It's really fucking weird, but like at the same time, nobody wants to be doing what they're doing. It kind of hits on like the forced holiday vibe of what we do because we think we have to. And it's that good late 90s, early 2000s vibe of like new metal in the soundtrack. It's fun. It's a fun movie. Ray Wise and Lin Shaye are just character acting their hearts out. Huge recommendation. And then the last one I will give you is, so I'm going to give you The Day of the Beast, Dia de la Bestia. It is late 90s, I believe, as well. It is a film by Alex de la Iglesia. If you have seen movies like Witching and Bitching or The Last Circus, he's just a super talented, super ambitious filmmaker when it comes to genre. And again, the only way that I can sell this is by saying a priest who is committing as many sins as possible, a televangelist who is just full of shit, but also maybe a psychic, and a record store metalhead all get together to stop the birth of the Antichrist. And that's how I'm going to sell that, because I don't want to sell it anymore.
I don't think you need to. I think that both Sean and I are sold. It's funny. I want to double down on your recommendation for Dead End. I did catch that movie many years back when I was horror blogging. And yeah, that one, like, nobody's seen that movie, but it's really, really damn good. So it made me super happy to hear you mention it. And also new metal soundtrack, magic words for Becky. And Dial Code Santa Claus. It's funny because I've been wanting to watch that for years, but I keep waiting until Gwen is of the right age so that she can read subtitles.
Oh, yeah.
I think she's going to love it. But I want her to be able to understand what's happening.
She is. The kid in it is so good. And I think that connection between Gwen and the kid, I think they would have a lot in common with the way she would handle things.
That sounds about right. She just watched the Home Alone movies and she's like dying laughing. And she's like, haha, that would kill them in real life. It's so funny. So yeah, I think that movie would be up her alley. All right. So last question in our more formal interview section. So let's say I spiked my eggnog and I wanted to have a really good time with some holiday horror fare. And you're kind of the first person I think of, Matt, when it comes to like drinking games, probably because you had the whole drinking with the dread column a while back. But what if I were to say I want to watch something that I want to drink along with a group of friends too? Do you have any recommendations? Do you think that would be good for folks to maybe do like a Zoom watch party with and have a fun drinking game?
It's almost like you're trying to say, Matt, we should promote your Santa Jaws drinking game for drinking with the Jed. Because guess what? I've already written a drinking game for Santa Jaws, which is now available on Amazon Prime as of recent. So just in time for the holidays, you can drink along with a movie where a child gets a magic pen from his grandfather, and the pen brings to life whatever he illustrates with it. And this year, he illustrates his new comic book, Santa Jaws, about a giant great white shark with I believe it is teeth that are the like red and green lights. It definitely has a Santa hat on its fin. It has some other lights adorned to it, and it has a peppermint candy cane horn. And Santa Jaws comes to town, and he is hungry. And when I say he's hungry, it is like sci-fi asylum level kind of stuff, but without the asylum part of it. It's just really fun, and it's actually well done, and it takes the time to be a very competent B movie, in the sense that a lot of the times I think the problem with these sci-fi films is they are trying to make a movie that's so bad it's good. And you can't try to do that. You have to stumble into something like that. And Santa Jaws, it's just trying to have fun. It's not trying to be bad. It's legitimately just trying to have a goddamn blast. And it does. It actually ends up transcending those levels of like, it shouldn't work. Nothing about it should work. It's all CGI. But in the same respect, it dives so hard into being exactly what it says. And it gets by the biggest fault of a lot of these movies of just being a title first and not having the movie to back it up. Santa Jaws delivers.
We will link to your drinking game in the show notes so that people can play along and feel very holly jolly as they watch Santa Jaws rip people apart.
Yeah, I might have to play that one myself because I forget if I actually drank for that one. I'm usually good about making a drinking game, and at least I'm going to spill
a QA run through.
Well, I was going to say I'll do a little. I'm going to spill how I did this. This is the creator's magic. I would drink a beer, but I wouldn't play the whole game with beer. Like when I'm doing the QA run, I would drink the beer and then just fill it with water. So at least I knew how many sips I was taking. So I would do my work. I would do my homework where I would know at least how much total people were drinking, but I forget if I did that with Santa Jaws, so I might have to go back and do that.
I think that sounds like a good Zoom party event that we should look into.
Before we jump into rapid fire, I have to ask one question because it's still lingering in the back of my head, Mr. Child's Play. How did you feel about them making the 2019 version while technically the franchise had not yet died? Unlike, the way Friday the 13th and Freddy might have been stalled out for several years. It seemed like Chucky was still attempting to go forward, and then they went ahead with the reboot.
I wrote almost 1,500 words the minute I found out. And yeah, I was not too pleased. I think what you just said is the reason why I wasn't. I understand why you bring back Freddy when you did, because there hadn't been a Freddy for a little bit. And for all intents and purposes, the franchise run was over. But just like you said, Child's Play was still kicking. I mean, people might not have seen the Universal directed video ones, but I kind of liked them. And not only that, like it was the one franchise that 40 years running was still moving forward, and there was no reason to go backwards now. And also, you weren't even going backwards. You were basically pitting the MGM product against the show that Mancini was trying to create. And it was almost like they tried to push out that MGM one to see if that would take off, and not only be a reboot, but like cut off Mancini's show and just basically try to take over. Like I was not okay with any of it.
Yeah, same. That's how I felt about it too. Is it seemed like the creator or Mancini himself was just trying to continue it, and they're like, nah, we're gonna do this instead. And guess what? He's AI now.
Oh my fuck! Listen. I got feelings on that. I got feelings.
My follow up was going to be: have you been able to watch it without the baggage and like reassess it? But it sounds like it still cuts a little too deep.
I think the one thing that, like, talking about my critic stuff too, going back there, is I always try to go into things without the baggage. Even in movies like that, I have a column on Bloody Disgusting where I basically compare remakes to their originals, and it's not to review them. It's actually just to talk about how the process of a remake should work and if it works like that. So, I mean, I actually wrote about Child's Play when it came out in that context, and my review is negative, but like my remake column on Bloody was kind of like, they did what it should do. Like, they got a new voice, they got a new kind of outlook on it, and I'm like, fuck, like, if I just didn't like it as a movie.
I think that's fair. I don't necessarily agree.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
But I'm not going to get into it. Because it will take another hour.
That could be its own podcast. I think it's such an odd movie that, like, people are so divided on it.
Yeah.
And I think to me, it's how well you deal with comedy and horror in a way.
Yep.
I think like that's the biggest thing I think I get out of all of it, because I just think that like something like Mancini's comedy is sharper versus what's in the remake. I think is a little like duller. I don't know.
No, I would agree with that. I think that's a totally valid criticism. I really love when things kind of take like a hard left turn, and I feel like that one totally does.
It takes a hard left turn.
Multiple. So I like that. I like getting whiplash.
I like feeling pain during my movies.
Yeah, well, I've been known to be like, yeah, give me the depressing and horrible movies that make your stomach hurt. I want those.
No,
yeah. What Becky just described was a circle, but that's a different left turn, left turn.
Well, yeah, exactly. It is a circle.
I like movies that go in circles too.
So we kind of explained this to Matt ahead of time here, but the Rapid Fire 15 is neither rapid nor really fire. It's just a questionnaire tailored to your taste and what we might know about you, and so the listeners can get to know a little more about you. So we will start you off here. If you want to pass on anything or just go into a tangent, we're not going to stop you. Okay. No, don't think too hard about it. It's more cool. First thing that comes to mind.
I don't think too hard ever. That's great.
There you go. What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
Predator.
I was not expecting that. But
that answer plays in this room.
One. Oh, yeah.
It's Predator or Bride of Chucky. Honest to God, it is Predator or Bride of Chucky. I'm pretty sure it's Predator.
All right. What is your comfort movie? Like, you're sick, you want like a warm blanket of a movie. What is it?
The Return of the Living Dead.
Good one. How about your favorite horror movie franchise? This seems weird to ask after everything we've learned.
That is the Child's Play franchise, because of all the things I have just said and all the words I have written on the interwebs.
I think that's the one question that has never left this questionnaire in the entirety of this podcast, so we still had to ask it.
This is a really, really quick tangent I'll go on, and it's very funny and related. I just set up this, there's this awesome website called Authory, and you can register as a writer. And it's like a freelancer's dream in the sense that you register, you tell it every site you've ever written for, and it will pull your byline into one simple aggregated website that is like your new portfolio. So I've been playing with this all day. Like I just got everything uploaded there. And for shits and giggles, I typed in Child's Play into I think I have over 1,600 articles written to date, and Child's Play came up 450 times. So I think
that's impressive. And it's funny, even though we probably knew the answer was going to be Child's Play, I think it's one of the reasons why this question sticks is that sometimes we get like curveballs thrown at us, because a lot of the times, like, my favorite movie is Halloween and everybody associates me with Halloween, but it's not my favorite franchise. Like, I prefer Friday the 13th. So sometimes we get weird answers like that.
I mean, it's the art of a franchise right there. It's the fact that you can have that killer lead in, you can have that killer first movie, but when your franchise is as deep as some of these old school horror franchises that were permitted 6, 7 movies, there's a lot of variables there.
Yep. Speaking of those variables,
Ooh.
What is your favorite Chucky/Child's Play movie?
Bride of Chucky, hands down. 5 out of 5, one of my favorite movies ever.
5 out of 5. I love it. It has some of the best one-liners of all time.
That was the marriage for me of comedy and horror in my mind. That was everything made for Matt Donato in comedy horror form.
Right. In fact, you had custom shoes made for you based on Bride of Chucky, right?
Mr. Andrew Lassane, Laptop Lassane on Twitter and Instagram, I believe. Yeah, he does custom shoes, and I needed Bride of Chucky shoes. So I have one shoe dedicated to Tiff, one shoe dedicated to Charles Lee Ray.
All right, no free plugs.
Andrew, pay the residuals.
No, we'll link to them as well. What is your favorite James Wan film?
Oh man, you son of a bitch. Insidious.
Ooh, good choice. That might be
Insidious?
my favorite too.
Guess what? Number 2, Dead Silence. Fuck you. Just kidding. It's not number 2, but still, it's up there.
I feel like that movie flew, I wouldn't say under the radar, but it was underappreciated at the time. But I feel like people now are like, you know what? Dead Silence was actually good. And I feel like that's a more common opinion now.
It was hated. I won't even say it was underrated. Dead Silence was hated for a long time. Yeah, absolutely. It got savaged. But if you go back and rewatch it now with the new context of knowing the filmmaker that James Wan became, it is so fun to see him start, we'll say, with Dead Silence, and a lot of the things that came into his Conjuring movies and that kind of paranormal element, it was all started in Dead Silence. You can see him playing with all the signatures that would basically become his namesake. It's all starting there, and it's all him toying with them, and it's so much fun.
I love seeing that. With Mike Flanagan, you can see elements of Hush, that he was experimenting with how he would shoot certain scenes in Gerald's Game, which is everyone knows Gerald's Game. It's if you read that book, you'd be like, how the hell are you going to turn this into a movie? Because he played around with it, the concept in Hush, even though they're two very different movies.
Totally. I mean, filmmakers have to start somewhere, They have to start somewhere, and they're going to have these ideas, and guess what? Maybe they're going to get better at it over time.
And that was Lee Winnell screenwriting, right? So even early post-Saw, but still before he necessarily honed what he is now, which is on his way to being an A-list director.
That's I feel bad all the time because I always kind of tweet in defense of Dead Silence, and then people start tagging him in. And
the snitch tag is the worst thing about it. It's nobody asked you to do that.
I also feel bad then because he doesn't have fond memories of Dead Silence, I found out. So yeah. It kind of sucks, the thing that it's a thing that we're rediscovering and loving, but at the same time, the very people were kind of be like, yeah, go Lee Winnell and James Wan, they might not love that thing.
No, he's doing okay now.
Oh, he's doing just fine.
All right, next question. Who do you think won in Freddy versus Jason? Freddy or Jason?
I think, are you asking me who won based on the way that they fought in the movie, or who won at the end?
Who won at the end?
Oh, I think Freddy did. I think that wink towards the camera, he ain't going anywhere. We know that. And he just has more ammunition for Jason if we ever got a Freddy versus Jason 2. I think there would have been a lot of problems for Mr. Jason.
How about if we'd have just gotten a third round between them in that movie? I think in hindsight, if you watch it, you're like, wait, weren't they supposed to do one more go?
The actual
Dream World and then Camp Crystal Lake, and then now what? Oh, just a wink. Okay, fuck you.
The wink to the camera. We're going to come back later. No, you're not. Just kidding.
I'm sorry, Becky, you posed this question to him, so I'm curious what your take is on that.
Jason, all the way. I was fuming over here listening to Matt's answer.
I mean, he was until the wink.
Exactly. He 100% wins until the wink. And the wink is everything that is Freddy's trademark, and it still shows that he's in control. You're still in Freddy's world, and you're still part of it. And if he is still alive, you do not win until he is dead, or whatever could be dead.
Wink or not, Jason is holding a severed head.
Yes, is this true?
I don't care about your logic. I don't care about your magic.
Fuck your logic and magic.
Jason. Anyway.
Speaking of fucking logic, the Oscars, we all like to debate in different ways. What do you think, Matt Donato, was the biggest genre snub at the Oscars?
So I know the easy answer here is Toni Collette in Hereditary, and I don't argue it one bit. I think Toni Collette it's the most chance we had in a way. Or Lupita, honestly, with us. I think those were the chances we had. But my answer here is Mr. Elijah Wood in the Maniac remake, because every time I rewatch that, I am more and more impressed with his performance specifically and how he is somehow able to make it look like we are watching a snuff film. And where he goes with that character and the whimpering and the mental rot and everything that goes into that character, I am surprised he came out maybe unscathed. I can't know for sure, but that is another performance that, I think kind of gets lost in that conversation. And again, the Maniac remake, I've written about that in my column. It is fucking brilliant.
Oh, definitely one of the best remakes, hands down. I think it's actually come up. I think we've asked a guest what their favorite remake was, and
Nice.
It came up. Switching gears now entirely. What is your favorite video game?
Ooh, if we're going all time, most hours logged, probably Halo 2. Just a lot of really fond memories of LAN parties with Halo 2 and just like eating Dominoes with your friends and playing multiplayer and like cursing each other out. I'm a first person shooter. I'm multiplayer, especially obviously because we play Warzone. But it's hard to get over Halo 2. But Mario Tennis is up there. Mario Kart just for replayability.
Your Italian's coming out.
My Italian's coming out. Yeah, because I like Mario, however you pronounce it. Everyone yells at me.
Mario.
No, I love Mario Tennis. Straight up. Mario Tennis. Sorry. You just said Mario and I said Mario.
No, say it the way you want to say it, Matt.
No, Mario Tennis I love that game. I don't know why. I am addicted to it for playing with my friends.
This next question, clearly from Becky, who knows you down to your soul. What character from Letterkenny do you relate to the most?
Oh, wow. That's a good one, because you might have stumped me a little bit here. But I think I have pieces of the main trio. I'm having trouble saying I'm any specific one of them. You know what? Screw this. I'm going to throw it back at you, Becky. Who am I?
I don't know. I don't watch the show.
Oh, you don't watch the show. Damn it. Okay.
I've never seen a second of the show either, so I was in the dark here.
Let's put it this way. I wish I could say I am Jared Keats' character Wayne, but he's super manly. I can't say I'm 100% that manly. But then Squirrely Dan's, he's a little too squirrely for me. He's funny. I have the sense of humor. And then Derry's just fucking awkward, and I'm not that awkward. So it's hard. I don't know.
It's okay. We can Frankenstein them together.
Yeah, I'm going to say I am the patchwork of Squirrely Dan, Derry, and Wayne.
I like how you reference back to Patchwork.
See, callbacks. I'm good at this stuff, man.
Yeah. All right. What is your favorite film festival experience?
Watching you beat the shit out of Brad at Fantastic Fest.
Oh, that was a good one.
Actually, no. Specifically, my favorite part of it was you training and him just standing next to me drinking a beer going, it'll be fine. And then you hitting him as hard as you could. And him looking at me going, holy fuck, she hit me as hard as she could. I'm like, what did you expect, Bradley?
You can't not do that if you walk into a boxing ring.
Absolutely not.
Becky, how have I gone all this time and not known that you were part of the Fantastic Fights with Brad?
What, you didn't know that?
I did not know you two fought each other. No, this is brand new news to me. This must have been a year I missed, clearly.
For the people at home, wait, hold on. For the people at home listening, Becky first had to debate Brad McHargue in who is the better villain between Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, which Becky blew him out of the water because Brad read a Wikipedia synopsis and Becky had an argument. And then they had to fight in a boxing ring in full boxing rules for 2 rounds. And that would decide the victor of the debate. And, well, like I said, Brad said, ow, she hit me as hard as she could. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's a tough... I've never done any sort of professional fighting, and it was hard because one of the things, they don't really tell you about is they don't make a lot of that gear for women. So they had all these men's sizes and things. So they had to go back to the room and let's see if we have any kids sizes we can give you for the mouth guard. And then the headpiece was too big, so it kept spinning around on my head and I couldn't see half the time. So I was just flailing like a lunatic. But I think that's pretty normal for the Fantastic debates.
Yes, if we haven't sold you enough talking over the course of this podcast about Fantastic Fest, they literally do a debate that turns into a boxing match in a real boxing ring. And I just learned today that Becky and Brad fought each other. And by the way, everything Matt just described is so on brand for both of you that Becky did the work, made an argument, and also threw a punch as hard as she could.
Yeah. I don't think anybody was super surprised by the result. But,
No.
Matt was there in Brad's corner like a true friend.
Yeah, until you beat the shit out of him, and then I just walked away.
Matt has a new friend.
Yeah, Matt has new friends now. This is how Matt makes
many
friends at
friends.
festivals.
Yes.
That's a good answer, by the way. And I can't believe I didn't know this story yet, but learn something new every day. Another thing that's kind of a segue into a different aspect here. What's the food item from New York that you still crave that you just cannot get here in Los Angeles?
It is straight up New York pizza. That is the one thing I knew I would miss the most, and it has turned out to be the one thing that I 100% miss the most. The best pizza I can get over here in LA is still like a dollar slice of New York is still better than most of the stuff I get out here. It's just not the same. And I'll admit, I have found a new love for tacos, burritos, because that's not what I had in New York. So that's what I do out here now. But I do miss my New York City street slice.
It's funny because, we're recording this over Skype and I'm looking at your little picture, which is you eating a pizza.
Yeah, 100%. I am who I am, and I kind of put that out loud.
Love it. All right. So another food related question. You have to kill one of these beverages.
Oh, God.
Meaning you can't have it ever again.
Oh,
Peanut butter whiskey, pumpkin ale, or a milkshake stout.
fuck.
All very weird and specific because
Yeah,
of
because
that.
unfortunately you know too much about me, so this has to stop. Man, if one of those had to go away, I would say the milkshake stouts, because I still want to be able to drink my whiskey on the rocks, and I know it's peanut butter flavored, but it's delicious, and I don't care. Or, yeah, it's got to be the milkshakes. Nope, milkshakes go away. They're just too heavy to drink a lot of, where I'm liking them right now, but I have like one or two, and they're like, they're cream-based, they're lactose-based, and on top of beer. So,
I hate to say I've never had peanut butter whiskey, so I need to rectify that very quickly.
Screwball peanut butter whiskey. It is the Fireball equivalent of peanut butter whiskey. But I have a friend who, do you know BJ Colangelo?
Yes, she was, I think, our first guest, actually.
There
She
you
was
go.
our first guest, yeah.
Good call back again.
BJ is married to a wonderful mixologist who apparently, I think BJ said, makes an old fashioned with the peanut butter whiskey. And I am very, very interested.
All right, what is Matt Donato's walk-up music? Like if you were coming in for a TED Talk or you were a fighter or a ball player?
Well, I like how it's like TED Talk or wrestling match. Like, I think I have two different songs for those. I don't know.
There's got to be one that just defines a Matt Donato entrance.
I've thought about this extensively, so I can easily answer that it would be The New Black by Every Time I Die. And the chorus is just basically the repetition of, if everything I do is wrong, by God, I do it right. So, yeah, that's me.
You are the first time a guest has ever had an answer ready for that question.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not joking. I've thought about this extensively in case I ever find myself in a wrestling match scenario.
All right. I'm liking how the Letterkenny question is the one that stumped you, and I feel like all these other ones are much harder.
Yep, these are super easy for me.
All right. Next one, also music related. What is your go-to karaoke song?
I'm not huge into karaoke, but if you're going to get me doing karaoke, it's going to be early 2000s, like pop punk in a way. Like probably going to be Fat Lip by Sum 41, something along those lines.
Not Linkin Park?
All right, Linkin Park is also in there. You're right, Becky. You're
Becky and the
correct.
new metal. She can't let it go.
No, Becky knows. Becky knows too much.
All right, I think we got one more left.
Hit me.
What is the one thing you've not been able to do since the quarantining and social distancing has begun that you're kind of dying to do, or might be the first thing you do once all the restrictions of this pandemic are behind you?
The first thing I'm going to do, and this is weird for me to say because it's not something I did during the pandemic, but I'm going to go to the nicest steakhouse I can find, order a glass of whiskey, order a gigantic steak covered in like garlic butter, and just indulge. Ron Swanson style, straight up.
Right? Give me all the meat you have.
Yep, exactly. I think you've misheard me.
No, that's a fine answer, because my wife and I finally did that the other day. We're like, we got to go beyond just the normal drive-throughs and or pickup spots around us. Like, let's indulge. And it's just not quite the same when they give it to you in styrofoam or plastic wrappings and stuff like that. Like we went and ordered a steak at a place that we had a gift card for. Like we had sitting around all year and like, yeah, it's just not quite what you're talking about. So
comes in like a lunch takeout container.
yeah, I understand the longing for it. I really do. We missed restaurants here in LA. I know some folks on the East Coast are back inside them.
Yeah.
And posting all their Instagram pictures like they never experienced the pandemic, but us West Coasters are going on 1 year of lockdown almost.
I am counting the days until I can go to a bar and just get a cold draft beer. That's all I care about.
No, same. We get it. The answer is usually that or, go to the movies, which is something we haven't been able to do out here.
I'll happily go to my Alamo Draft House or whatever, but no, first for me, I am a foodie through and through, so it's going to be that just like artery clogging steak.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's the end of the rapid fire 15 part of it. We appreciate those answers. And just to segue out of that, what can we be looking forward to from you on the horizon? Is there anything as far as like writing or review coming up or something you want to plug?
Yeah, so upcoming with the end of the year hitting, What to Watch is my biggest outlet right now where I'll be posting most of my things, but definitely there you can get my top 10 for the year, just general. And then also I'm going to do a horror top 20. So you'll get my top 20 in horror as well. And yeah, a lot of nice little end of year tidbits where maybe I will give some recommendations that people need to see before, 2021 starts and we're all behind again.
And if they, people want to follow you online, what are your social handles where they can, get all of the live updates on your holiday horror watching and whatever else you're going to be recommending our way?
Should the people want to follow me on the internets, they can follow me at Donato Bomb, at DONATOBOMB, just making it clear. Twitter, Letterboxd, Instagram, pretty much all I use these days, but definitely on the Twitter, if you're following me there, you're going to see everything that I post. So sorry.
No, and if, again, you can find that at paperstreetpodcast.com. We'll drop that in the episode show notes. So yeah, we appreciate, again, all the answers, and hopefully some folks out there got some knowledge about not just the writing and journalism side of, what you do, but also some incredibly good horror recommendations that are holiday themed. So we can't thank you enough for the time, and appreciate you being on. Happy holidays and all the rigmarole that goes with that.
A pleasure to be here, as I said. So I'm glad that I can bring my quote unquote knowledge to the people. Hopefully it's helpful, and hopefully people get drunk watching Santa Jaws.
It's on my to-do list.
Checking that twice.
Ooh, that was good. All right. Thanks again, Matt.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.